What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be something interesting, something I've never tried before, but I've decided to do it because, frankly, this has gotten out of hand. Now, if you've read the title of this video, you already know what I'm doing. I am continuing the series that I'm in the middle of so I can finish them because they've been on my to-read list for a very, very long time. Some of these have been on here since 2018. Now, I'm not saying I'm proud of that. I'm not saying that's what you should aim for. I would have read the first book, but the second book wasn't out, and then the third book wasn't out, or they were out, but the fourth book wasn't out, and I would have to wait for a while to get them. So for that reason, I didn't continue, and it's gotten out of hand. This is the list of series that I'm in the middle of. Can you ignore my shattered screen protector? Do you see that? There is 21 series on this list. How did I get here? I don't know. But we're here, so we're rolling with the punches. I don't know how I got here, guys. For this video, I'm going to be reading 3 series, or maybe 2, depending on how long this video is, because you know me, I don't shut up. This video is gonna include, what is the name of the series? The Lone City. This is the Lone City series by Amy Ewing, which includes The Jewel, The White Rose, and The Black Key. I don't remember what this, oh, I match it. How cute. I don't remember what this book series is about, but I remember I read the first book and I enjoyed it, and I read it in 2018, 2017, I want to say, and I never continued in this series. That's like a reoccurring theme. The next one is the Come Back to Me series by Mila Gray, which includes Come Back to Me, Stay With Me, Run Away With Me, which is my favorite because it's pink on the inside, Watch Over Me, and Fall Into Me. And these are all library copies. And then I don't remember what this book series is about either. I honestly think I remember the first book, which was a Marine's love story, like he's in the Marines, and yeah, that's all I remember, to be honest. And I remember there was a spice scene in the first book that got me going, and so I said I want to read the rest of them. I'm counting it as fair game if I read the first book or reread the first book, because that's how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna reread the first book of the series, because I don't remember what any of the content is about. I'm gonna reread the first book, and if I decide to continue on with the series afterwards, then I will continue. If not, then I will DNF, and we will never talk about the series ever again, and we will just DNF the series as a whole. For a third one, we have the King's Trace Anti-Heroes by Sav R. Miller, and that will be read on ebook because I have it on my iPad. This one has 3 books, so I'll be reading all 3 books, and I will let you know how it goes. I will read them all together as a series rating, and if you should read it or not, and then we'll go from there. I read this series in 2018 for the first time. I didn't read the entire series. I read this one and I called it a day because I don't know why, actually, because I was really interested in continuing on, but I guess I was like, oh, I'll get to it, and then I added it to my TBR on Goodreads, and then I added 100 other more, and then 100 on top of that, and so it got lost in my TBR, and it's been in my TBR since 2018, which is 6 years now. Don't know why, because I actually really enjoyed it. And I believe I listened to the audiobook the first time that I read this series. I listened to this on audiobook while I was working. It's been a long time, and I was afraid that I wouldn't be really interested in reading this series anymore because obviously it's been years since I've read it, and my opinions on books have changed, and my genre preferences have changed, and so I was afraid that I wouldn't be interested in reading this series. And when I looked back at all the series in my TBR on my Goodreads, when I saw this one, I was like, I remember liking it and being like shook by the ending of the first book, but then I never continued. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll start with this one because it's the one I'm like on the fence about finishing. So I was like, I might as well do that now and see if I like it. If I don't like it, then I'll DNF the rest of the series, but for now I'll read the first book and go from there. So that's what I did. I actually didn't get any footage of me reading the first book because I read it in one sitting, which is insane. So The Jewel, I finished this one. I gave it 3.75 stars, or maybe 3.5, between 3.5 and 3.75 stars, because the story is interesting. It's kind of a dystopian. It's set in a world where the girls have abilities. And the ones who do have the abilities, after they hit puberty, they get tested. And once they get tested, the test results will determine if they become a surrogate or not. And if they become a surrogate, they have to go train to be surrogates in a schooling system. And then after they pass that, then they have like an auction day where the royal family and all the rich people can buy them as surrogates to have kids for the royal family, so the royal line doesn't die out, because the royals get sterilized when they get married, because like way back ago, when the royals used to have children, the children would die or be stillborns or come out with like deformities and stuff like that. So now it's law in this world that if you marry into the royal family, you have to be sterilized, and then after that you can't have kids, so you have to buy a surrogate from the auction. You buy a surrogate and the surrogate carries the baby for the royal family, and then they give birth, and then you go from there. So we follow the story of this girl. Her name is Violet, and mind you, what I completely forgot and what I didn't catch on to when I first read this book in 2018 is that every character in this book was named after a stone or after a jewel, which it would make sense because it's called The Jewels. We follow her story in the beginning of this book. I'm not gonna spoil anything because I don't want this to be a spoilery-filled reading vlog. She's reaching her auction day and she gets bought by this duchess, and we just follow her on her journey to becoming a surrogate for this family. And a bunch of stuff happens that I completely forgot, which makes sense because it's been years. But what I was really taken back by was how easy this is to read and how quickly it read. The first book was 358 pages and I read it in one sitting because it was so easy to fly through and so easy to read. It's written in a way that makes you just follow along with the story really quickly. I don't know that I would recommend this series. I think if you're beginning to read like fantasy, not really fantasy, if you're beginning to read and you want an easy dystopian novel, dystopian series, this very much reminds me, well, I don't know when this was released. When was this published? It would make sense if this was in the dystopian age. 2014. So this was released in the dystopian age of novels. So it makes sense for it to be so heavily inspired by the books that were coming out at that time. It's very like Girl Saves World. I'm not really, I haven't continued. I haven't started the second book, so I'm not really sure how the rest of it is going to continue. But as of right now, it's very dystopian formula. Like, girl gets picked. She doesn't want to be picked. She doesn't want to be in this world. She's afraid. She's scared. She's on the verge of her death, and she has to face all these challenges as a teenage girl and in a world that she doesn't know and away from her family. It's very interesting, it's very entertaining, very easy to read, very easy to follow with, and yeah, that's it. It's just really easy to continue, and I have decided that I will continue on with the rest of the series. This one is 308 pages, so that will probably be done in one sitting too, and then the Black Key is even smaller. It feels like, yeah, it's 295 pages, so this will be done in no time. I will probably be able to finish both the White Rose and the Black Key in one sitting. I don't know that I will. If I'm busy, I probably won't, but if I'm not and I don't have anything to do, then I don't see myself stopping in the middle and prolonging the reading experience. If I was forced to become a surrogate, I would hate my life. So it's interesting to read about a story where the main character has to navigate her way into realizing that she maybe doesn't want to become a surrogate, even though that's what she's trained her whole life to be. I'm going to start on the White Rose at some point. I finished the White Rose. I gave it 3.7, no, I gave it 3.5 stars, which I believe I also give The Jewel 3.5 stars. So, you know, there's not really much to say about it because it's a sequel. It's the second book in a series. It was interesting. It was entertaining. Kept me interested. It was really easy to read. I read it in one sitting. So, you know, that says a lot if you can read a book and finish it in one sitting. I had a moment today where I thought maybe I want to DNF the rest of the series because I want to get to the more, like, to the ones I'm more excited over, to the series I'm more excited about. But I decided, you know, I have one more, so I might as well. This one is called The Black Key, which now I understand why it's called The Black Key, because they explain that in here. And it is less than 300 pages, if I remember correctly. To be honest, it's not anything, like, you know, you need to read. It's not anything really, like, life-changing. It's not really, like, the best series I've ever read. It's not the worst either. I understand why I was interested in finishing it in 2018, whatever, you know? But as of right now, I just think the story is kind of boring. The characters are kind of boring. They kind of lack depth. The story is getting old. And I'm not really interested in the plot line or in the conflict that's going on or in the mystery of it all. It says that this is a fantasy series. I get that, but it also feels a little bit more dystopian, which is a part of fantasy, I guess. It feels very 2014, and that's the best way I can describe it. If you were reading and watching BookTube in 2014, you would understand why I said that if you read this series, because it's just very generic formula for a dystopian book in 2014. It's not anything special. There's not really, like, the romance isn't really selling it for me. The plot is okay. I feel like I just don't have much to say about it just because of the fact that it's kind of boring. And I believe this whole series as a whole will probably end up being 3.5 stars. Since I've given the first two 3.5 stars each, I feel like this one probably won't be that much different, because how much can you really wrap up in less than 300 pages in a fantasy book? You know what I mean? Like the third fantasy book in a series. You know this is old because when it says follow the author on her socials, the Instagram icon is the old Instagram icon from like 2012, 2013. The story isn't really all that complicated. The characters aren't all that complicated. They just feel very young and juvenile, which I believe if I was younger, I probably would have loved it. But as a 26-year-old, it's not really selling it for me. The series I'm reading after this, I believe I've read maybe 2 or 3 books out of 4, 5. I'm not really sure. But I read it when I was a senior in high school, which was a very long time ago now. So almost 10 years ago. Jeez, that is not what I want to be thinking about right now. We'll get on with this and I'll let you know how it goes. The first series of this challenge. I finally looked up what the name of this series is. So it's called The Lone City series by Amy Ewing. I just finished the last book. It didn't take me long at all because it was 295 pages. So it took me like an hour and 45 minutes. I don't really have much to say about it. I gave the last book 3 stars and I gave the first and the second book 3.5 stars. So overall, it's like 3.25 stars, between 3.25 and 3.5 stars for the entire series as a whole. I just couldn't get past the fact that it was written like it was 2014 dystopian era book, you know? And that's not to fault the book because it was released in 2014, 2015. If I'd read it back then, I would have loved it. But seeing as I just came off of reading the entirety of the Throne of Glass series 2 months ago at this point, I just don't, it lacks depth. The characters are not really all that likable. There were some plot twists in there that were interesting that I didn't see coming. I recommend it if you're looking for something like that, but if you read a lot of fantasy, I feel like this will fall short for you because it's very underdeveloped and the last book is less than 300 pages. And I was right when I was kind of hesitant about that because you can't possibly wrap up an entire series in less than 300 pages, you know? Like, the minimum would be 325, 350 pages, but it was 295. It felt very rushed and it felt like we were time jumping, like 1 second they're there and then another second, another chapter is like 3 months later. It just felt rushed. The ending felt rushed. The thing that they wanted to do in the end to like show that basically the main character has developed and to like show her power and her strength and what she's been planning on doing for the last 2 books of the series, it just was so rushed and like a character died that I didn't see really the merit in them dying. So 3.5 stars, 3.25 stars for the entirety of the series. Here's the series list. Let's cross off The Lone City, which I'm glad I read that first because the next series that I'm reading, I think I like a little more than this. So I'm glad I didn't read it first. Crossed off the very first series of this list. At least this is done. We can move forward. I'm glad I read them quickly. These are done, finished, dusted. Thank God I didn't buy my own copies. I would have been upset because these are not worth my money. I'm glad I can utilize my library. The next series that I will be reading, I don't remember anything about, to be honest. I think it's a best friend's or a brother's best friend romance and there's military involved. I don't know. I don't remember when the last time I read this series, to be honest. Let me check, because Come Back to Me series by Mila Gray, and the last time I read it was in 2016. So this is a very common theme that happens. I read the first book and then I don't read it. And I read the second book in 2018, and then I wanted to read the rest of them and I completely didn't, which is crazy. I don't know if these follow the same characters or they're just like separate standalones. I believe these are separate standalones that follow different characters, but the world is interconnected or something like that. This is what they look like. And this is by Mila Gray. So the first book is called Come Back to Me by Mila Gray. I'm not going to say her name for every book. Stay With Me is the second book. I hate these covers, I'm not going to lie to you. Run Away With Me is the third one. Watch Over Me. And then lastly is Fall Into Me. And I did not remember that this was a 5-book series. I don't believe they were all out at the time that I was reading them. The first one, which is Come Back to Me, is this missing pages or what? It just ends that way? What? Oh, haha. I thought it just ended randomly. It turns out it was like a peek into the next book. It's 343 pages. This is a romance. I don't remember what this is about. I'm telling you, I think it says it's romance and it says it's young adult. I believe I remember these having spice in them, at least the first two. Yeah, exactly. I remember. So it basically follows this girl. Her brother is in the military and his best friend is also in the military. And he can't be with her because she's his best friend's sister, younger sister. And I love me a good brother's best friend storyline. I haven't read one of them in a very long time. So I'm going to get to this and I'll let you know how I feel about this. I will probably enjoy this maybe a little bit more than the Lone City series. This will take me probably a little bit longer to finish because it's 5 books, not 3 books. And they all look pretty standard size. Imagine how expensive this video would be if I purchased every book that I'm talking about in every series I'm talking about. That would be insane, actually. So I'm gonna get into this probably maybe later tonight or tomorrow because I'm thinking of reading something else to break up the series video because I don't want to read series one after another, even though they're different genres. Come Back to Me, and I finished this in 2 sittings and I was right. It's about this girl and she has a brother and he's in the Marines, and her brother has a best friend and he's also in the Marines, and she's been in love with him for years. She's been in love with her brother's best friend for years, and a bunch of things happen and PTSD happens, and what happens to people who are in relationships that have a significant other that's in the military or in the Marines. I thought it was so interesting because I don't think I read a lot of military romances. I do remember a lot of this book, and I remember being so in love with Kit. Kit is the main character, the main love interest, and I love him so much. He is so like acts of service and words of affirmation and physical touch and everything that I could love in a man, and I love him so much. He means everything to me. I loved him when I read this book in 2018 when I was, I want to say 20, and I still love him now. And this was my second time reading this book, and I will say I was not at all like questioning if I should continue with the series. I'll tell you, I had a moment. I'll tell you why though. Angst in here is crazy. If you like angst, you would love this book. Something about a guy doing everything he can for the girl in the book, I eat it up every time. So I gave this I gave this 4 stars. I will not elaborate because I actually really enjoyed this, and I remember enjoying it the first time that I read it, and I'm glad that though it's been years, my rating has not changed. On to the next book, which is Stay With Me, and this follows the best friend of the girl from the first book. I believe this is also about a military romance. I'm not sure though, I could be wrong. I think this entire series follows military romances, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not really sure, to be honest. This is 356 pages, which is not much. Honestly, I'm gonna try to finish this in one sitting because I want to get through this series, and there's 5 books. These have been really easy to read. I don't know if it was easy to read because I already knew the story from the first book. I don't know if that's because I enjoyed the first book a lot more, or if I like the guy from the first book a lot more. I don't really like the best friend, to be honest, for me to be reading a book about her, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna let you know how it goes. Hopefully it goes good. So, I have finished Stay With Me. I gave this 3.5 stars. This is about the best friend of the character from the first book, Jessa. Her name is Dee Dee, and she is working as a psychiatrist, therapist, trainee, intern under her father, who is a therapist who works in a center for vets or retired Marines or Marines who have been hurt and need some help to cope and to get like prosthetics fitted and stuff like that. And I gave it 3.75 stars. I enjoyed it. This is a forbidden romance because obviously he's her client, or like technically client because she's not really a therapist, she's training, but she is taking care of him and trying to get him to recover because he has gone through a lot, and he's just come back from the war and he's lost everyone in his crew, and except for one person because that's the person he decided to save. So he's working with some PTSD, full blindness, I guess, in the beginning of the book, and I just thought it was interesting. I enjoyed it because it's a forbidden romance. The only reason that I gave it 3.75 stars is because the ethical values of this book are not great. Like, ethically, if you're really a therapist and you're kind of sleeping with your non-patient patient, it would be very frowned upon. So from that point of view, I can't consciously give it more than 3.75 stars. The story was enjoyable. I liked their romance. There was cameos from Jessa and Kit from the first book in this book as well, which I really enjoyed. And I enjoyed seeing them be together since they spent a lot of their book not together. The story was a little bit slow at times, and the third act breakup was kind of really traumatic and really wrong and dealt with in a very wrong way. And like I said, I can't consciously give it 4 stars when it's very ethically questionable. Like, there were some questionable practices. She's not actually a therapist. He's not actually her patient, but just thinking about it kind of gives me the ick. And then I moved on to Runaway With Me, and this I read today in one sitting. In a few hours. That's why I didn't get any footage of me reading it. This is 346 pages. Trigger warning for SA. Very heavy trigger warning on SA and PTSD. This is not connected to the other 2 books at all whatsoever. This is about a girl and her best friend moves away, like out of nowhere, out of the blue. And he's her very best friend in the whole entire world, and they just kissed, and you find that out, and like they love each other, they both have feelings for each other, and then something happens and he ends up disappearing for years, and then he comes back into town and she's shut off from him. She doesn't talk to him. She hates him basically, but not really, because deep down inside she still loves him, and she's wondering why he left without saying anything to her, even though they were best friends and they were about to become more. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really liked these characters. This is 3.75 stars as well. It was a little difficult to read about when it comes to the essay happening in here. So I would just be careful if you're a little sensitive when it comes to that topic. But I thought it was handled really, really well. Definitely went by really quickly, a lot quicker than I thought it would. Actually, a lot of the series has gone by a lot quicker than I thought it would. And I think I'm gonna continue on with the streak of just reading the entire book in one sitting, because 5 books is a lot, and I want to move forward to the series that I'm actually really, really excited for. But that doesn't mean that I'm not actually enjoying the series, because I am. Next, Watch Over Me. This is what it looks like. I'm not really sure what this is about, to be honest. From what I know, I read the Goodreads summary, so from what I read from there, it's about this girl who is dealing with taking care of her mother, shoulders a lot of the responsibility when it comes to taking care of people, and she meets this ex-military guy, I believe. He's ex-military, right? Or he is in the Coast Guard. So this was back to the military-themed stories. I don't believe this is attached to any of the other stories that I've read so far. I believe this is just by itself. This is 345 pages. This seems like it might be the one that I enjoy the least in this entire 5-book series. I'm not sure. Hopefully I'm not disappointed, but this is the 4th book. I'm excited. This is blue, I believe, right? More like nudie toned, because the second one was blue, the 3rd one was pink. This one is like nude, I guess, brown, you could say. Yeah, I'm excited to read this, because then that means I'll move on to the last one. She has an abusive father. So there's a lot of like themes of like abuse and abusive fathers and PTSD and depression, and I thought depression was really shown really well here, and PTSD. I thought it was shown really well here, like how complex it can be and how it can show up as different things for different people. So I thought that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the portrayal of the main guy character and how much he struggled with his like thoughts and like the guilt that takes him when something happened to the rest of his team, and he was like survivor's guilt was really shown here. And I'll also trigger warning for suicide and like suicidal ideations. Both of these also had spice, and I thought the spice was done really well. It wasn't like a Fade to Black type of scene, but it wasn't filthy either. It was very like elegant, graceful. I thought it was done really well, and all of the men so far in this series have been very like ride or die for their girl, and they've been like very kind and very like loving and very like they fall in love, you know. It's not like just sex, you know, or it's not just spice. Like they're actually in love with the girl, and they actually want to like take it slow and be gentle and be kind and be thoughtful. And yeah, I thought it was really nice. The men so far in the series have been really exceptional, and I really liked every single guy character that I've read about. Friends to lovers, wounded vet with PTSD, and a potential therapist. Very, very strange. Today is Monday, February 19th. It is 5 p.m. and I have finished Watch Over Me by Mila Gray. This is the 4th book in the Come Back to Me series. And it is about this girl who has spent her entire life taking care of her family, like her sister, her brother, and her mother, while her abusive father is in jail. She ends up staying with her brother's friend, who her brother is in the military as well, and his friend is also in the military, or like in the Coast Guard, and she ends up staying with him because of a situation that happens with her and her family also end up staying there with him, and their relationship blossom after this tragic incident happens. And you do see, I actually said yesterday, I remember, I said that I didn't think this was related to any of the other books in the series. I was wrong. We get scenes where we see Jessa and Kit from the 1st book, and we see Dee Dee and Walker from the 2nd book, and we see all of them as like continuous characters in this book, and it was really nice to see, because I feel like we are growing like a friend group of people that are so nice and so kind and so lovely and so good to each other, and such good friendships form. I liked their relationship. I ended up giving this one 3 stars, which I do believe I said I think this will be my least favorite of the entire series. This was about a like domestic abuse. There's a trigger warning for gun violence and domestic violence, domestic abuse, things of that nature. Also SA, or sexual harassment, I guess. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Definitely my least favorite of the entire 4 books or 5 books, but this does not mean that it's not good. It's actually really entertaining and really fun and really easy to get through. That's why I read it in one sitting, in one day. So yeah, that is the 4th book of the Come Back to Me series, which then means we are on to the last one, which is Fall Into Me, and this is 341 pages, so even less than this one. I follow the story of Luna, who is a singer-songwriter, and her bodyguard, who is an ex-Marine, and his name is Will, and he's actually the brother of Zoe, which is the main girl character in this book, so they all intertwine and they all connect in one way or another. I'm the most excited for this one because I am a sucker for bodyguard romances, and I think this will be probably up there. I don't think it will be Come Back to Me just because I have like actual attachment to that book from when I was younger, but I do believe I will enjoy this a lot. I love the name Luna because it means moon, and I love anything moon and moon related. I even have a moon tattoo literally on my finger. I have an update as well because I have news. So, if you do not remember, I said I was going to read The King's Trace Anti-Heroes by Sav R. Miller, which is a trilogy. I have decided to DNF them. Because, hear me out, I am not in the middle of them. I'm not. I haven't started reading any of them. The only one that I wanted to read was the last book in the series, or in the trilogy, and I tried to read the first book, I didn't like it, I DNF'd it after 50 pages. I read the second book, I DNF'd it after like 35 pages because I just didn't like it, and the last book I just didn't even end up trying because I don't like the way it's written, I don't like the way the story is told, I don't like the characters, I don't like the series, and since I'm not already in the middle of it, and this is mostly series that I'm in the middle of, I've decided to take it off of this challenge and DNF it. If you have read it, please let me know what you think of it and if I should give it a chance, because as of right now, I don't see myself returning to it just because of simply like I'm kind of put off of it at this point, and I don't see myself returning back to the series anytime soon. I don't really care for it. It's like a mafia type of romance, which I would love in any other capacity, but the books that I read just didn't click with me and I didn't like them. So that means we get to cross off King's Trace Anti-Heroes. So that's 2 done, which means I am now on to the last one of this series, and then we can cross off Come Back to Me, and then that would mean that we are done with this entirety of this challenge for now. I already yap enough as it is, so I don't feel like I need to yap about another series on here. The thing about the Come Back to Me series, like I said last night, is that it follows different characters and different storylines, so I'm not reading about the same characters recycled in different forms, you know? Like, there's a different story to every single book that I've read so far, and I really enjoyed it, actually. As of right now, I think the entirety of the 5 books stand at, I want to say 3.75 stars as a series as a whole, so we'll see after this one, maybe it'll take it up to a 4. Finished Fall Into Me by Mila Gray, which is the last book in the Come Back to Me series, and this is, like I mentioned, is about this girl. Her name is Luna. She's a famous singer, songwriter, and she's getting death threats, and so they hire this ex-Marine to be her bodyguard, and his name is Will, and he's the brother of Zoe, who is in the book previous to this, and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I felt like it went by really quick, and a lot of these books, I think all of these books start with a flashback in the beginning of like halfway through the story where like a traumatic event is taking place, and then they start the story all over from the beginning, and then in the middle of the story you get to that traumatic event and then we move past it, and I feel like this book dealt with it very well. I really enjoyed the story. I liked the chemistry between Will and Luna. I loved Luna. I loved Will. I loved the friendships. I loved the romance, the like how hard he fell for her. I thought it was a beautiful story. I loved the way it was told. I liked Mila Gray's writing. I think she wrote very beautiful stories in all of these books, all these 5 books in the series. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I definitely had a good time reading it. I read it in one sitting in a couple of hours, and yeah, it was really, really good. It was a nice experience, and that means let's go ahead, cross this off my series list. So, yippee! All of them are done. That is this video done because I feel like I don't want to ramble on anymore. I feel like I've read a lot of books already so far. First, I read the Lone City trilogy, which is The Jewel, The White Rose, and The Black Key. I gave this series as a whole 3 stars, I believe, or 3.25. I'm not really sure. I don't remember the story that much because it was very lackluster. The characters lacked depth. I really didn't like it, and I didn't see the point in extending this to be 3 books when it could have been a lot less. I just feel like it was overdone, and I thought it was interesting because, like I said, it's a story about surrogates, and I've never read a book about a surrogate before. So for that reason, I ended up giving, I believe, all of these books 3 stars to 3.25 or 3.5 stars. I did forget to mention when it came to the Come Back to Me series, when I finished Watch Over Me, I didn't like the fact that there's something that happens here to Zoe, which is the main character, and it's glossed over so quickly because it happens within the last 10 pages, and I feel like it was rushed for us readers to read about it being solved within 10 pages, and suddenly then we're in the end and it's like, oh, this happened, and then time skip and things are all better now. So I really didn't like that when it came to this. That was the second series that I read, which includes, I will say it again, Come Back to Me, which is still my favorite because simply of the fact that I love the characters and love the story, and it's very nostalgic to me. Stay With Me, Run Away With Me, Watch Over Me, which is my least favorite, Fall Into Me, which is a close second to Come Back to Me. The author did such a good job in creating 5 stories within the same universe that were interwoven, but not in a boring way. Like, sure, it was about a ex-marine, ex-military man and a girl, and that was basically the formula for the stories, but I felt like it wasn't repetitive. Each story was very different, and we did get a lot of of the old characters coming back and making an appearance in this book, which I really loved. I love how hard the men fall for the girls in these books. It's so insane. They fall so hard, it's like they can't even see straight. And nothing I love more than a man falling harder than the girl is, but it seems like they're both so in love. In every book, like, she wrote the men so beautifully, and they made love seem so beautiful and so pure. On that note, we can talk about the series that I actually DNF'd, which is King's Trace Anti-Heroes. Very disappointed that I DNF'd it, but I'm actually not really that mad about it because I just feel like it was about time that I DNF'd it, because I gave it multiple chances and I gave the different books multiple chances, and I just didn't end up liking the writing or liking the characters or really being interested in the story at all. I could always come back to it. Like I said, I have the ebooks on my iPad, so whenever I feel like it, I can always go back to them. Not that I probably will. I'll see you guys again next week with another video, and I hope this was fun for you to watch because I had a lot of fun like reading these books. And a lot of the Come Back to Me series, I actually read the books in one sitting in one day, which hardly ever happens. Between the series that I've read for this video, I definitely recommend the Come Back to Me series. I hope I can make this video series like a thing, and I can come back to it in a couple of weeks, maybe months, and continue reading the books that are on my series list because I have enough. Reading 8 books in about a week and a half was a lot. I am at 11 books for the month of February, which is crazy, but I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. If you've watched all the way to the end, I very, very much appreciate it. I hope you have the best day ever, and I will see you guys again next week with another video. Goodbye!